Okay, so our topic will be employee benefits. This will be a two-part discussion. First discussion will be for defined benefit. We are going to focus on retirement benefit under a defined benefit plan, although we will be discussing the entire content of PAS 19. And then the second part will be discussing the short-term benefits, the other long-term benefits, and your termination benefits. Okay? So before we proceed with the discussion, let us first have an overview of the contents of the topic of this said topic, or how it is related to the CPA board examination. So as per the syllabus of the CPA board examinations or the CPA licensure examinations, employee benefits is part of the contents or the subject contents of FAR, or Financial Accounting and Reporting. And the provisions or the items that are expected to be asked in the board examination are relating to number one, nature and classification of your employee benefits, meaning it is we can expect that they will ask about your short-term benefits, your post-employment benefits, your other long-term benefits, or your termination benefits. Okay? Next, we are also expecting that the board examination will also contain questions relating to measurement, recognition, and presentation of your employee benefits under defined benefit plan and defined contribution plan. So basically, yun yung dalawang main na in-emphasize dito, no? Okay, and then last is yung presentation and disclosures for other items. Okay, so again, kung magtanong sila ng presentation and disclosure, we have no choice but to answer that. So ang gagawin mo lang, basahin mo lang yung mga basic na disclosure requirements. Okay, now the issue comes when we look into the TOS, or the table of specifications. Kasi based on the table of specifications, ang category, okay, pansin mo nakalagay dito sa section is 8.3. So ibig sabihin nandun siya sa pang-8 na topic, tapos third subtopic lang siya dun sa pang-8 na content. So ang category kasi nung 8 is, or nung parang topic 8 ng ng ating syllabus for financial accounting and reporting is other topics. Kasama dyan sa other topics yung income taxes, yung leases, hindi pala kasama yung leases. Kasama dyan yung income taxes, kasama dyan na yung employee benefits, kasama yung yung discussion natin for interim and saka segment reporting. So basically, yun ang issue natin dyan. Kasi nakalagay siya other topics dun sa TOS. Tapos sinabi, dun sa other topic section, ang total ay 10 items. Tapos 5 yung subtopics. Kasama yung employee benefits dun. So, ngayon, kung 5 subtopics, tapos 10 items lang yung lalabas sa board examination relating to other topics, then expect na nasa 2 items ang itatanong lang for employee benefits. O, diba? So, ang dami-dami na naman natin i-discuss ngayon. Tapos, expect sa board examination, 2 lang ang lalabas na tanong. Hindi pa natin alam kung saan magfo-focus. Magfo-focus ba sila sa 2 question lang sa employee benefits na defined benefit plan, or meron na namang isang question na manggagaling sa defined contribution or short-term benefit termination. So, yun. Yan ang issue natin ngayon. So, of course, the best way for us to prepare for the board examination topic is to discuss everything, tapos at least alam natin kung ano yung core concepts, so that pagdating sa examination ay makuha natin ng tama yung questions or yung sagot dun sa mga questions. Okay, sige. So, anyway, proceed tayo dun sa content ng PS 19. Okay, for a while. Okay, so objectives muna tayo ng PSA or PAS. PSA. PAS or IAS 19. By the way, the title of PAS 19 is Employee Benefits. So the objective is basically to prescribe the accounting and disclosure for employee benefits, okay, requiring an entity to recognize a liability where an employee has provided services and an expense when the entity consumes the economic benefits of employee services. So in other words, the basic concern here is the recognition of the expense pertaining to the employee service and the liability pertaining to the unpaid portion of the employee service or the services provided by the employee. That's basically what we are concerned about in this item. So the scope of our the scope of our services or of the employee benefits that we're going to account for under AS19 will be as follows. Una, salaries and wages. So yung normal na sweldo. Compensated absences, that is going to be part of your short-term benefits. Profit sharing and bonuses. Okay, so kaya kailangan din nating aralin yung mga methods of computing for the bonus. Medical and life insurance benefits during employment. Okay, yan yung mga baka binabayaran ng insurance premiums. Meron kayong mga iba't ibang klase ng Medicare na tinatawag. Okay, so kasama yan. Non-monetary benefits such as houses, cars, and free or subsidized goods or services. Di ba? Parang kasama yan sa mga benefits na ina-account din natin for tax purposes. Retirement benefits, including pensions and lump sum payments. So yan yung medyo mas mahaba ang computation. Post-employment medical and life insurance benefits. Yan, baka kasi yung insurance na binabayaran during your time na employed pa kayo is actually going to accrue until yung retirement. Actually, di ba meron pa yung concept na kapag na-outlive natin, okay, kapag na-outlive natin yung ating policy, bibigay sa atin yung lump sum price, di ba? Or yung cash surrender value, parang ganun. We also have long service or sabbatical leave. Okay? So, pag sinabing sabbatical leave, yan yung i-allow ka nilang mag-leave ng minimum of 1 year. Kumbaga parang rest. Okay? Rest day muna. Okay? Or rest period. Tapos saka ka pwedeng bumalik just in case. Okay? Meron din yung jubilee benefits. Pag sinabi kasing jubilee benefits, parang related yan to 50 years. Okay? So, parang kapag nag 50 years old na yung empleyado, ano ba, meron ka bang additional benefit na ipoprovide? Like, are you going to allow the employee to have early retirement, etc. sa mga ganun. We have deferred compensation programs and termination benefits. So, yan lahat yan. Ang limits lang natin, IAS 19 does not apply to employee benefits within the scope of IFRS 2 kasi share-based payment na yun. Okay? Or, the reporting by employee benefit plans, okay, which is covered by IAS 26, accounting and reporting by retirement benefit plans. So in other words is, ang point of view lang ng PAS 19 is yung amount na i-record ng company na nag-establish ng benefit package or ng benefit plan. Okay, so hindi natin pwedeng i-cover hindi pwedeng i-cover ng PAS 19 yung share-based payment kasi covered yan ng IFRS 2. Tapos kung paano ina-account ng mga retirement benefit plans or ng mga retirement benefit companies yung retirement plan ng mga entities na nagpahawak sa kanila ng pondo. So ibang usapan yun. Okay, so yan yung scope natin. So let us go first to short-term employee benefits. So pag sinabi nating short-term employee benefits, basta ang tatandaan lang dyan is these are benefits that are going to be settled within 12 months. Okay? From the time na na-establish siya or usually 12 months from the end of the reporting period. So kumbaga parang current portion or current employee benefits. Okay? So ano daw yung mga kasama dyan? So mga short-term employee benefits, so kasama dyan ay wages, salaries, profit sharing, bonus, non-monetary benefits paid to current employees. Take note, hindi kasama ang termination benefit kasi separate ang category niyan. Because take note, temporary or termination benefits are non-recurring cost. Pag binayad mo yan, tapos na ang minsanang bayad. Hindi na siya ibabayad ulit. Okay, so yan yung consideration dyan. And take note, since these are short-term employee benefits, undiscounted dapat yung amount. Okay, so hindi naman na kasi relevant ang discounting kapag short-term. So yan yung mga items natin. Okay, so kasama din dyan yung mga compensated absences, okay, which we will be discussing in detail in the next part of this discussion. Okay? So pag dun sa profit sharing and bonus payments natin, ang concept lang dyan is or ang pinaka-issue lang dyan is how are you going to compute for the bonus? Okay? So may iba't ibang formula kasi on the computation of the bonus. Kasi pwedeng yung mismong net income or pwedeng net income in excess of a certain percentage or a certain amount. So ganun. So depende. So it's up to the entity. Actually discretion yan nung entity kung paano natin i-declare or i-compute yung profit share na yan. Okay? Ang pinaka-issue natin or ang pinaka-mahabang computation dyan is yung sa post-employment benefit. Okay? Kaya sa post-employment benefit, dalawang option yan. It's either defined contribution plan or defined benefit plan. Kapag defined contribution plan, simple ang accounting kasi defined na ang contribution. Okay? In other words, basta magko-contribute lang yung mga empleyado or magko-contribute lang yung ating entity or yung employer natin, pagkatapos, yung benefit na makukuha, variable. Okay? So, fixed ang contribution pero variable ang benefit na makukuha later on. Kasi, the concept there is, yung amount na matatanggap mo, okay, or yung amount na matatanggap ng empleyado, upon retirement or upon the termination of the employment is going to be dependent on the performance of the benefit plan na in-establish. Okay? So, parang example, ang sinabi ng company is ang contribution will be 1,000 galing sa employee tapos dodoblehin ng employer. So, kumbaga parang 3,000 per month yung kino-contribute dun sa plan. Okay? So, parang ang labas dyan, yung principal amount mo, basta 3,000 per month, multiply mo dun sa number of months na nag-provide ka ng service dun sa company, plus whatever earnings will be generated by that particular benefit plan. Okay? Kasi yung benefit plan, pwedeng ang nagmamanage is yung company mismo or pwede ring ibang entity. Okay? Or ibang company yung nagpaplano. Parang third party siya. Okay? Pwede ring state-owned na benefit, like in the case of the Philippines, we have the SSS kasi may benefit ka din na makukuha doon. Actually, pati yung sa pag-ibig, meron, parang yung sa pag-ibig kasi parang savings yun eh. So, meron ka din makukuha doon na parang post-employment or retirement benefit. Okay? So, yun yung defined contribution. Okay? So, sabi dito, the entity's obligation is therefore effectively limited to the amount it agrees to contribute to the fund and effectively place actuarial and investment risk on the employee. Diba? So parang ang labas, basta magko-contribute kami, yung earnings, hindi namin sure, hindi namin magagaranti kung magkano yung earnings mo for that particular retirement plan na in-establish. Okay? So parang ang labas doon is, hindi talaga maa-assure ng company kung magkano yung actual na matatanggap ng employee. As compared sa defined benefit plan, wherein the benefit is defined. Defined benefit plan. So, the benefit is defined. So, ibig sabihin, may assured amount ka na matatanggap at the end of your employment. In other words, alam mo na kung magkano talaga yung tatanggapin mo. So, what happens here? Kasi ang defined benefit plan, pwedeng contributory, pwedeng non-contributory. So pag sinabi natin contributory, pati si employee magko-contribute. Pag sinabi natin non-contributory, si employer lang ang magpo-provide ng pondo. Okay, so in this case, the concern here is, since defined na yung benefit, kapag hindi sufficient yung pondo to pay out yung ating mga employees na mag-retire or para um, mabayaran yung pondo or mabayaran yung retirement benefit ng mga employees, then the risk of funding it will fall on the employer ulit. Okay? So, syempre, ang issue natin dyan is, kunyari, ang pinramis sa'yo, pag mag-retire ka, makakatanggap ka ng 5 million, ganun. Eh, during that time siguro, underperforming yung plan or underperforming yung plan asset natin. So, ang gagawin dyan, basta si employer, kailangan bayaran niya yung 5 million na na-promise. Okay? So, ganun siya. So, if we try to consider, no, if we try to determine yung ating to try to assess yung mga benefits na makukuha natin, actually parang meron din tayong mga private retirement fund. Yan yung mga, siguro may mga lumapit na sa inyo before na sabi AXA or Sun Life or Pru Life or whatever life na mga yan. Those are also considered as benefit plans. Yun nga lang, these are insurances and not really employment related. Pero yung computation kasi almost similar din. Yung tipong maghuhulog ka ng monthly premiums tapos yung benefit mo at the end of the year, kunyari, at the end of your sabihin natin pag na-reach mo yung certain year, number of years, pwede mo nang ma-withdraw or pwede mo nang makuha. So ganun din lang yung process niyan. Ang ating issue dito is yung actuarial assumptions and the other computations involved. Kasi yun yung medyo nagpapa-complicate. Okay? So there. So in a defined contribution plan, simply recognize ka lang ng debit to contribution expense or benefit expense, tas credit ka lang ng cash pag nag-contribute ka. Wala nang problema doon. Sa defined benefit plan, may iba't iba ka pang kailangang i-compute. Such as, number one, actually, dalawa lang yung main item dyan. Number one is yung projected benefit obligation and second is the fair value of the plan asset. Kasi yun lang naman yung dalawang relevant item natin. Projected benefit obligation is the amount that you're expecting to pay. Okay? Based on the actuarial assumptions and based on the computations, based on demographic and financial assumptions, yung mga yan. Tapos, yung fair value of plan asset is basically magkano na yung value ng pondo mo na pangbayad doon sa projected benefit obligation. So, from there, doon nalalabas yung ibang mga mag-offshoot na items such as benefit expense, asset ceiling, yung benefit expense sa OCI, remeasurements, and others. Okay? So, yun siya. Yun yung mga considerations natin doon. So again, in the measurement of the defined benefit liability, we are focusing on the actuarial valuations or the actuarial assumptions. Okay? So, kailangan natin i-consider yung mga items na yan. So, kung ano-ano yung mga actuarial valuations na yan, discuss natin in detail later on. Okay? So, actuarial assumptions used in measurement are subdivided into two. Basically, dalawa yan. We have the market or the financial and the demographic. Okay? Discuss natin yung dalawa later on. We also need to consider the past service cost, which is also a component of your defined benefit expense. Okay? Current service cost and others. May mga gain on loss on settlement din tayo, which we will discuss in detail pag nandun na tayo sa defined benefit plan. Kasi may separate discussion tayo for that. Okay? So to sum it up, ito yung mga expenses that we are going to expect to recognize. First is the service cost, which is relating to the current and the past periods, which should be presented in profit or loss. We have the net interest, okay, of the earnings ng ating plan at saka yung interest expense naman doon sa projected benefit obligation, which is also going to be presented in profit or loss. And then, all other items, okay, such as yung actuarial gains, return on plan asset, changes in asset ceiling, or basically these are known as remeasurements. These are going to be presented in other comprehensive income. Okay, so yan. Then, for other guidance, discuss lang natin to. So, IAS 19 also provides guidance in relation to first, kailan mag-recognize ng reimbursement of expenditure to settle a defined benefit obligation. So, in other words, kapag sumobra yung payments mo, is it automatically reimbursable or is it simply recognized as an advance payment? Okay? Tapos, when it is appropriate, offset an asset relating to one plan against a liability relating to another plan. Diba kasi generally, may isang utang, dapat may isang fund. Diba? So, ang tanong, pwede bang iba yung utang, iba yung pondo, pero pwedeng pag-offsetin? So, may mga ganong tanong. So, of course, we need to consider that. Okay. Next, we also need to consider accounting for multi-employer plans by individual employers. Okay. Defined benefit plan arising are sharing risk between entities under common control, entities participating in state plans, and insurance premiums paid to fund post-employment benefit plans. These are these items are added guidance which I based on past board examinations are not already discussed. Okay? Or hindi siya kasama sa board examination unless theories ang tinatanong lang na ano ang state plan, ano ang multi-employer plans, yung mga definition lang. Okay? So, parang ang labas kasi sayang yung isang item kung yun yung itatanong eh. Tapos generally, kung gusto mong makuha yung basic concept, hindi ka magdidwell dito sa other guidance kasi these are already highly specialized items in your employee benefits. Okay? And then, we also have disclosures which are basically disclosures on the characteristic of the defined plan. Okay? Yung explanation resulting from the defined benefit plans, yung mga explanation ng total ng benefits. Okay? We also have yung description of how defined benefit plans may affect the amount, timing, and uncertainty of the entity's future cash flows. Kumbaga parang risk on the cash flows lang naman. Okay? And also you have other disclosures, okay, relating to the reconciliation of the balances between the beginning and ending. Okay? Or between the beginning and ending of the year. Okay? And additional disclosures are required in relation to multi-employer plans and defined benefit plan sharing risk between entities under common control. So, pag sinabi natin common control, yung mga joint ventures, mga ganyan. Okay? So, meron din tayong other long-term benefits which are in the form of yung mga pwedeng medical benefits, yung mga ganyan. We have yung mga additional service costs involved. So, i-account din natin yan. Pero generally, pag may mga long-term na benefits, pasok pa rin yan sa post-employment. And finally, we have termination benefits which are paid for the severance or for the termination of the employment of a particular entity. Okay? So, the termination liability is recognized at the earlier of the following dates. First is when the entity can no longer withdraw the offer of those benefits, and when the entity recognizes cost for a restructuring under IAS 37. Okay, if you can still remember, di ba? Meron tayong discussion ng restructuring in IAS 37, part of our provisions. So, yung pag-recognize natin ng benefit liability is either earlier or is the earlier of the two dates. Okay? So, kahit wala ka pang in-establish na restructuring provision, kung final na yun yung benefits na babayaran, hindi mo na siya pwedeng i-withdraw, recognize ka na ng liability. Okay? And take note, termination benefits should always be non-recurring kasi minsan nang bayad na lang yan. Kung magre-recur man siya, ang concept lang is nag-installment payment ka lang. Pero ang ibig sabihin ng non-recurring is minsan nang settlement yan Okay? Or pertaining to the non-continuing operations of a particular entity. Okay? So yun siya. So with that, we proceed doon sa defined benefit plan. Okay, which is the focus of our discussion for this session. So in a defined benefit plan, again, we said that the benefit is defined and what the company and the manager of the plan needs to do is to make sure that the funding or the performance of the fund is sufficient to cover the projected expenditures or the projected settlements that the company will be incurring in the future. Okay? So, since these are long-term benefits or since these are benefits that will be paid beyond the current period, the obligations are generally going to be measured at the discounted price or based on present value computations. Tapos i-amortize. Okay? So, yun yung consideration natin dyan. Now, what are the basic steps? No? Although meron pa tayong mga certain computations, of course, ang consideration natin dyan will be magkano yung fair value plan asset tapos magkano yung present value of the DBO or the benefit obligation, defined benefit obligation. So yun lang naman yung main na concern natin dyan. Tapos alamin mo kung yan ba ay surplus, kung yan ay deficit, alamin mo kung meron ba tayong kung may sobra ba tayong napondo or kulang pa yung pondo natin. Okay? So next is we are going to consider sa step 2 natin, determine the net defined benefit liability or asset. So kapag may deficit, okay, ibig sabihin mag-recognize natin siya as a liability. Kapag naman may surplus, we are going to recognize it as an asset, pero consider if there is kung lumampas na tayo or if we exceeded already the asset ceiling. Kasi whatever is the excess dun sa asset ceiling natin is going to be presented in our remeasurements sa other comprehensive income. Okay? So, pag sinabi nating asset ceiling, it pertains to the present value of any economic benefits available in the form of refunds from the plan or reductions in future contributions to the plan. Okay, so yan ang definition ng asset ceiling. Of course, asset ceiling is also subject to other computations or more complex computations. That's why for board exam purposes, ang ginagawa dyan is binibigyan ka lang ng amounts tapos binibigay na rin sa'yo yung mga present value factors. Kapag medyo mabait yung problem, ibibigay na rin sa'yo kung magkano mismo yung asset ceiling. Para i-compare mo na lang siya doon sa surplus natin. Okay? Kapag lumampas sa ceiling, edi yung sobra, ilipat mo sa OCI. Kapag hindi naman sumobra sa ceiling, ibig sabihin, recognize in full yung ating surplus. Okay? So what are the general items that we are going to consider in your defined benefit obligation computations or your defined benefit plan? First is the current service cost, which pertains to the present value of the benefits, okay, earned by the employee during the current period. Okay? So yun, kaya nga tinawag na current service cost, di ba? So, nag-provide sila ng service, kinumpute natin yung benefit, sinubject natin sa present value, yun yung current service cost pertaining to this year. Pag sinabi naman nating past service cost, this pertains to the change in the present value of the defined benefit obligation resulting from a plan amendment or curtailment. So in other words, 'di ba yung current service cost pagdating ng kasunod na taon, past service cost na siya, 'di ba? So yun lang naman yung concept niya. Ang problema is there is a possibility that because of plan amendments or curtailments, there will be changes in the computation of present value. So pwedeng tumaas, pwedeng bumaba. So generally, it's going to be added. Okay? It's going to be an added cost doon sa ating benefit plan. Okay? So yun yan. Next, gain or loss on settlement. So the gain or loss on settlement naman pertains to the difference between the present value of the defined benefit obligation and the settlement price. Okay? Kasi minsan, pwedeng ito yung present value ng obligation pero mas mataas yung settlement price. Pwede rin naman na mas mababa yung settlement price. So kapag mas mababa yung settlement, edi may gain ka. Kapag mas mataas yung settlement, loss ka naman. Okay? We also have what we call interest cost on the defined benefit obligation, which is basically the computation of the interest of the projected or the defined benefit obligation multiplied by a certain discount rate, okay, which is applicable doon sa ating defined benefit. Okay? And then finally, we have the actuarial gains or losses or the changes in the present value of the benefit obligations resulting from the adjustments of the actuarial assumptions. Kumbaga, may nagbago doon sa ating mga actuarial assumptions, okay, which resulted also in the changes in our present values. Okay? Since pinag-uusapan na natin yung actuarial gains and loss, i-discuss na rin natin yung actuarial assumptions natin. Okay? Kasi pag sinabi natin actuarial assumptions, these are estimates. Okay? Estimates of the items that will affect yung ating computation or makaka-apekto doon sa ating benefit plan. Okay? So basically, ang ginagawa dyan is hinahanap natin yung iba't ibang variables, iba't ibang mga components or iba't ibang elements that will most probably affect the settlement or will affect the amount that we are going to recognize as part of the defined benefit plan. Okay? Pag sinabi natin na actuarial assumptions, mahati yan sa dalawa. Okay? Yung ating actuarial assumptions ay mahati between number 1, yung ating demographic assumptions. Ibig sabihin, tungkol yan dun sa tao or tungkol yan dun sa mga empleyado na pinoprovidean natin ng ating benefit. Tapos meron naman yung financial assumptions. Yan naman yung tungkol doon sa market rates, tungkol doon sa performance ng company, mga ganyan. So yun ang tinatawag nating financial assumptions. Okay, so yun yun. So ngayon, ano ba ang ating demographic assumptions? So demographic assumptions are as follows. Mortality. Okay? In other words, gaano ba katagal natin ini-expect na mabubuhay yung empleyado, di ba? So syempre kasi magiging makaka-affect din kasi yan doon sa settlement eh. Syempre kapag kunyari, ang assumption mo is babayaran mo yung empleyado on a monthly basis. Okay, from the time na mag-retire siya. Tapos magbayad ka ng lump sum kapag minsanan naman niyang i-avail. Siyempre, kapag kunyari na mas maagang mamamatay yung empleyado as compared doon sa in-expect natin, then magkakaroon ng difference, di ba? Kaya kailangan in-estimate natin yung mortality. Second, rates of employee turnover, disability, and early retirement. Kasi kapag hindi mo yan kinonsider, baka mag-over present value ka. I take note, kapag may empleyado na maagang aalis, biglang may ma-disable or biglang may mag-early retirement, then mas maaga mong ibabayad yung benefit, di ba? So, kailangan mong i-adjust din yung ating present values. Next, the proportion of plan members with dependents who will be eligible for benefits. Ayan. So, pag kunyari na matay yung empleyado before niyang nakuha yung full benefit, yung lump sum ng natitirang benefit, kailangan mong ibigay doon sa ating beneficiaries or dependents ng empleyado. Also, we have yung claim rates under medical plans. Pag sinabing claim rates, gaano kadalas, anong period, Okay, magkano, okay, or kumbaga basically yung frequency ng claims. Okay? Yan siya. So yan yung demographic. Basta kung papansinin mo, ang demographic assumptions, yan yung mga relating doon sa ating person, okay? Or demographics, basically yung situation na pumapaligid doon sa empleyado. Okay? Pag financial assumption naman, ito yung mga assumptions that relate doon sa market or doon sa magiging performance ng plan natin due to, number one, discount rate, yung gagamitin nating for present value computation. Number two, future salary and benefit levels. Kasi pag nagbago yung sweldo, mapapalitan na naman yung contribution expense, di ba? Or yung benefit expense. Future medical cost, okay, if any, including cost of administering claims and payments. This is not pertaining to the claim rate, ha? This pertains to the amount, okay, na babayaran natin for future medical cost. Kasi baka tumaas yung medical cost ng ganitong case, di ba? Or yung ganitong sakit, ganyan. And then expected rate of return on plan asset, because this is going to affect also our computation for the fair value of the plan asset. Okay, so yun yan. So from there, punta naman tayo doon sa actuarial assumption with regards to the discount rate. Kasi tatanungin, anong discount rate ang ginagamit for purposes of getting the present value of the defined benefit obligation and the fair value of the plan asset. Ang sagot ay, ang una mong gagawin, hanapin mo yung discount rate, okay, of a high quality corporate fund. Okay, so hanapin mo yung yield rate ng high quality corporate bonds in your particular area. Okay, or kung generally, kung kunyari, kasi kadalasan naman kung saang country ka nag-ooperate, doon ka rin mag-i-invest eh. Okay, unless sa ibang bansa mo i-invest yung pondo mo. So basta ang basis ng discount rate is the yield rate of a high quality corporate fund. Okay, in during the reporting period. Okay, sabi the rate used to discount post-employment benefit obligation shall be determined by reference to market yields at the end of the reporting period on high-quality corporate bonds. Ibig sabihin, possible na from year to year, mag-iiba or magpapalit-palit tayo ng yield rate. Okay, so pag magpapalit ng yield rate, magpapalit din ng present value, di ba? Yan siya. Ngayon, in countries where there is no deep market in such funds, in other words, hindi masyadong nag-venture into debt securities yung ating country, the market yield at the end of the reporting period on government bonds naman shall be used. Okay? So, kumbaga, priority 1, high quality corporate bonds. Priority 2, government bonds. Yield rate ng government bonds. So, kapag may problem, binigay sa'yo yung dalawa, obvious na. Gamitin mo yung high quality corporate bonds in present value computation. Okay? So, next tayo, we go to the plan assets. Okay? So pag sinabi nating plan assets, okay, yung plan asset natin could be in the form of assets held by a benefit fund or an asset held by qualifying insurance policy. Okay? Again, di ba, diniscuss natin kanina sa introduction na dalawa yan. Okay? So pwedeng mismong ang tawag sa kanya ay benefit fund. So maghuhulog ka doon ng pondo. Pagkatapos yung entity na humahawak ng pondo, siya na yung magmamanage, siya na yung bahalang mag-manage ng pondo para kumita, para masiguro na enough yung pondo to pay up yung mga future benefits. Pwede rin namang maging qualifying insurance policy. In this case, third party na insurance company, okay, sila na yung magko-cover nung lahat. Kumbaga parang premiums lang yung babayaran natin. Okay? Tapos yung risk associated with the benefit will be falling dun sa qualifying insurance policy. Okay? So pag sinabing assets held by long-term employee benefit fund, okay? The assets, okay, other than non-transferable financial instruments issued by the reporting entity. Okay? So basically yung assets na relating to the retirement, that are legally separate from the employer and exist solely to pay employee benefits and are not available to the employer's own creditors even in case of bankruptcy. So these are secured funds, okay, that are given to a third party or pwede ring mismong nasa entity siya pero nakaseparate talaga siya na asset, hindi siya pwedeng galawin ng employer because that is purely for the benefit, okay, of the employees. Kapag naman qualifying insurance policy, these are the proceeds of the policy, okay, that will be used to pay employee benefits and are not available to the employer's own creditors even in case of bankruptcy. So usually, ang ginagawa dyan is maghahanap ka ng third party. Okay? So pwede kasing ang gawin dyan is yung ang mag-a-apply mismo is yung entity, pwedeng third party din. Okay? So it's basta ang concept dyan is yung pondo ay in-establish as an insurance policy. So hindi siya pwedeng galawin ng company, hindi siya pwedeng galawin ng creditors because it is secured for purposes of paying employee benefits. Okay? So yan yung item natin for benefit plan. So let's answer the theory questions relating to employee benefits. Okay, mostly focused on the defined benefit plan. Okay. So theory question number 1, the components of defined benefit cost include all of the following except. Okay, ang defined benefit cost lang kasi natin, di ba, tatlo lang yun. We have the service cost, the net interest, and the remeasurement. Okay? Service cost is going to be a service cost and net interest is presented in P&L, and then your remeasurement is presented in OCI. So contributions to the plan is not a benefit cost. It is a funding to your plan asset. So the answer there is letter D. Next, the service cost of a defined benefit plan comprises all of the following except. Ano ang component ng service cost? Ang service cost ay tatlo. Current service cost, past service cost, and the gain or loss on settlement. Okay, take note, net interest is a separate component which is basically the difference between the interest expense and the interest income. Interest expense of the defined benefit plan and the interest income of the plan asset. Okay? So the answer for number 2 is letter D. Number 3, which of the following components of defined benefit cost shall be recognized through other comprehensive income? So nasabi na rin natin yan. Ang nasa OCI lang ay remeasurements. Ano yung component ng remeasurements natin? We have the actuarial gains and losses. We have the earnings or the return ng ating plan asset at saka yung effect of the asset ceiling. Okay, so yan yung number 3, letter D. Number 4, it is the increase in the present value of the defined benefit obligation resulting from employee services in the recent period. Recent period is letter A, current service cost. Number 5, it is the increase in the present value of defined benefit obligation for employee service in prior years resulting from a plan amendment or curtailment. So this is basically your past service cost. Number 6, which of the following statements is true in relation to the recognition of past service cost? The answer is letter D. Vested and unvested past service cost shall be expensed immediately because they pertain to the previous period already. So ang nangyari lang nga ay napalitan yung measurement, so we have no choice but to recognize the said amount, okay, to recognize yung particular na amount na yan during the current period. Kasi remeasurement, hindi siya remeasurement, recomputation siya nung past services that was already earned. Okay, number 7, what is the meaning of net interest in relation to defined benefit cost? Diba sinabi na natin, yan ay yung difference between the interest expense ng defined benefit liability at saka interest income ng fair value plan asset. So letter C ang sagot. Number 8, which of the following should be included as plan assets? Yung plan asset ay either assets held by the benefit fund or qualifying insurance policy. So the answer is letter C. Both 1 and 2. Number 9, plan assets are assets held by a long-term benefit fund and must satisfy all of the following conditions except. So kapag yan ay assets held by long-term benefit fund, ano daw yung except? So ibig sabihin, hanapin natin yung characteristic nito. Okay, hanapin natin yung naiiba or yung hindi niya characteristic. So sabi, the assets are held by an entity, the fund itself, that is legally separate from the reporting entity. The answer is yes. Dapat hindi siya kasama dun sa reporting entity. Pangalawa, the funds are available to pay only employee benefits. Tama din. Pangatlo, the assets in the fund are not available to the reporting entity's own creditors. Tama. So letter D, malamang yun ang except. The asset in the fund can be returned to the entity even if the remaining assets are insufficient to meet all employee benefit obligations. Take note, kapag ganyan, ang pwede lang isauli yung excess. Okay? So kapag insufficient yung pondo, bakit mo isasauli doon sa entity? Diba? So letter D ang sagot. Number 10, it is an insurance policy issued by an issuer or insurer that is not a related party of the reporting entity, and the proceeds of the policy can be used only to pay or fund employee benefits under a defined benefit plan. The answer is qualifying insurance policy. So in other words, this is a fund that was established in another entity which is not a related party. Okay, ang purpose ay siya yung mag-manage nung parang insurance or basically benefit plan ng ating entity. Okay, 11. These are the entity's best estimate of the variables that will determine the ultimate cost of providing post-employment benefits. The answer there is actuarial assumptions. Actuarial assumptions being subdivided into two. We have demographic and financial assumptions. Question, which of the following statement is incorrect concerning the actuarial assumptions? Sabi doon, actuarial assumptions shall be unbiased and mutually compatible. Siyempre. Okay? Kasi pag biased yan, edi malamang hindi na objective yung pag-compute natin. Okay? Second, actuarial assumptions are unbiased if they are neither imprudent nor excessively conservative. Okay, tama yan. Kasi unbiased siya kapag hindi siya imprudent at hindi rin siya excessively conservative. Dapat saktong-sakto lang. Okay? Prudence dictates that the amount should be neither overstated nor understated. At hindi rin pwedeng excessively conservative kasi we need to consider the risks involved. Pero hindi naman yung OA sa pag-recognize ng risk. Diba kasi kung conservative ka, dapat hindi tayo masyadong pumapasok dun sa mga super risky. Pero ang concept naman yan, baka naman excessively conservative, hindi naman na siya representative ng market effect. Okay? Or nung actual na nangyari sa market. So letter C naman, actuarial assumptions comprise of demographic and financial. Tama yun. So malamang mali na yung letter D. Post-employment benefit obligation shall be measured on the basis that reflect current salary and ignores future salary increases. Di ba? Kasama doon sa financial assumptions natin yung changes in salary. So, dapat kasama yun. So, letter D is incorrect. Okay. 13. The discount rate used in making actuarial assumptions shall be determined by reference to. So, ang first priority is, of course, yung market yield ng high quality bonds or high quality corporate bond. So letter A ang sagot natin dyan. Next, 14. These are changes in the present value of the defined benefit obligation resulting from experience adjustments and the effects of changes in actuarial assumptions. Those are known as actuarial gains and losses. Tapos, demographic actuarial assumptions include all of the following except. So number 15, hanapin mo yung hindi demographic. O di ba? Basta ang sinabi natin kapag demographic, it pertains to the circumstances and situations involving or revolving around the employer mismo. So, rate of turnover, disability, proportion of plan member eligibility, okay? Or plan members eligible for benefit, kasama na din dyan yung mga beneficiaries, etc. Letter D, discount rate is a market or a financial actuarial assumption. 16 naman, lahat daw to ay financial assumption except. So future salary, future medical cost, tax payable by the plan, claim rate under medical plan is a demographic assumption. So letter D ang sagot. So pagbalik ta rin mo yung dalawang yan, yun na rin yung tamang listahan, di ba? So basically, ang discount rate dapat nasa financial actuarial assumption, yung claim rate dapat nasa demographic. 17, actuarial gains and losses may arise from all of the following except letter D. Okay, so tingnan mo. Mag-a-arise ang actuarial gains and losses from unexpected high or low rate of employee turnover. That is a demographic assumption or that is a gain or loss arising from a demographic assumption. Change in assumption concerning benefit payments. Okay? This is going to either be kung payment siya pertaining to the rate of payment or the frequency of payment, then demographic. Kung pertaining siya dun sa amount of payment, then it becomes a financial assumption. Change in discount rate is of course a financial assumption. So mag-result din yan ng actuarial gains and loss. Letter D, change in the present value of the defined benefit obligation due to introduction, amendment, curtailment, or settlement of benefit plan is not an actuarial gain or loss because this is part of the service cost. Okay, letter D ang sagot natin dyan. 18, what is the treatment of actuarial gains and losses? It is recognized as remeasurement in other comprehensive income, okay, and permanently excluded from profit or loss. Kasi nga, based on our discussion, hindi siya pwedeng maging part ng P&L. It is always part of OCI. So, letter D. 19, what is the treatment of gain or loss on the settlement of the benefit plan? It is part of the service cost which is going to be presented in P&L as an expense. So, letter C ang sagot doon. And then, finally, number 20, what is the transitional effect of the application of PAS 19 on an amortized past service cost and unrecognized actuarial gain or loss? The answer there is letter D. Any unamortized past service cost and unrecognized actuarial gains or losses will be recognized in retained earnings. So, this question is generally for the transition of the provisions of PAS 19. Pero of course, since 2011 pa yan na change, okay, most probably, hindi na talaga yan itatanong sa board exam. Kasi wala naman ng transition dapat. Kasi tapos na yung transition ng 2011 pa. Okay, so, but anyway, just in case lang, kung may tanong na old question, pero supposedly nga, di ba, sabi ko, hindi na siya relevant kasi tapos na yung transition ng 2011 pa. Pero ang ginagawa lang doon, yung mga past service cost na hindi na amortize, tapos yung mga actuarial gains na hindi na recognize, i-recognize lang ng buo, pasok agad sa retained earnings. Kumbaga, wala dapat na di-defer from those items. Okay, so yun yung ating theory questions. Alright. So we proceed with the problem portion. Before we present the solution for the problem portion, I'll just discuss a comprehensive analysis of the components of your defined benefit plan. Okay, so mag-present tayo ng tabular at saka ng T-account computation. Okay, so unahin muna natin yung tabular kasi mas mas madali mong marirelate kasi yung mga items kapag meron tayong tabular presentation. So mag-insert lang tayo dito ng ilang columns ba kailangan natin? 1, 2, 3, 4. Kasi yung benefit expense, P&L, OCI, fair value plan, asset, DBO. Okay, so damihan na rin natin yung columns. Okay. So dito yung mga components. Ito yung benefit expense na P&L. Ito yung benefit expense na OCI. Ito yung fair value of plan asset. Ito yung defined benefit obligation. Yan. Okay? So, set up natin para mas madali nating ma-establish. Okay, kung paano natin kino-compute. Okay. So, unahin natin yung component ng service cost. So, ibig sabihin medyo madadagdagan pa to ng mga columns. Okay? So, unahin natin si service cost. Okay? Yung service cost natin, tatlo ang component niyan. Diba, meron si current service cost. Wait, kailangan mas malawak pala to. Okay, si current service cost, si past service cost. Okay, tapos si gain or loss on settlement. Diba, yan. Tapos, yung second component is the net interest. Okay? The net interest is galing sa interest expense tsaka interest income. Okay? Next, kung may service cost tayo, saka may net interest tayo, meron pa tayong, ano yung pangatlong component natin? Di ba remeasurement? Okay. So, remeasurement natin, ano yung component niyan? Yung actuarial gain or loss. Okay? In DBO. Malamang sa DBO kasi yan. Dagdag pa tayo kasi kailangan natin magdagdag ng components. Meron tayong return on plan asset. Tsaka yung asset ceiling. Pero yung asset ceiling sa baba na lang natin ilagay kasi hindi pa natin alam kung may asset ceiling man or wala. Kaya hindi siya automatic na nilalagay sa remeasurement. Explain natin siya. Tapos dito sa baba pala maglagay pa tayo ng balances. Ito yung beginning balance. Beginning balance. Okay? So malamang ang may beginning balance lang is si fair value plan asset at saka defined benefit obligation. Okay, sila lang yung may beginning balance kasi itong mga to kino-close naman yan at the end of the period. Okay? So ano gagawin mo? Ang service cost ay may component na current service cost. So i-gitna na rin natin yan. Wait, lagyan natin siya para mag-center. So ang service cost, mayroong current service cost, past service cost, at saka gain on settlement. Okay, ba't siya nagka-capitalize? Ganyan na lang. Okay. So, ang current service cost, dahil yan ay pertaining to services provided by the employees, madadagdagan niya yung utang natin. Yung defined benefit obligation. Ganun din yung past service cost, dagdag yan sa gain or loss on or sa defined benefit obligation. Bakit magkakaroon ng gain or loss on settlement? Diba sinabi doon, gain or loss on settlement arises from the difference between the amount that is supposed to be paid and the amount that was actually paid. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, yung difference nung binawas doon sa utang at saka yung binawas doon sa resources, yun yung gain or loss on settlement. Okay? Kaya nga, kapag silent yung problem, kung sinabing settlement of 100,000, ibig sabihin, parehas yung tinanggal na utang at saka yung perang tinanggal sa pondo. Okay? So, zero ang gain or loss on settlement. Pero kapag merong binigay sa'yo na information na may gain on settlement, kunyari, na 50,000, ibig sabihin, mas marami kang or mas malaki yung binawas na utang kaysa dun sa actual na binayad. Okay, so yun siya. Ang interest expense, papasok din yan sa ating P&L, pati yung interest income. Pero di ba, dahil yan ay in kita, dapat yan ay naka-parenthesis. Okay, so by the way, kapag gain, bawas. Kapag loss, dagdag. Okay? So yun siya. So ngayon, ang tanong, ang interest expense is, saan mo i-extend? It is an element of the defined benefit obligation. Kasi 'di ba kapag nag-earn or kapag nag-incur ng interest, nadagdagan yung utang, 'di ba? Ang interest income naman is a component of the fair value plan asset which is added. Okay? Kasi kapag kumita, yung plan asset, dagdag sa pondo. Pero deducted siya sa cost. Kasi 'di ba pag benefit expense ang pinag-uusapan, cost 'yun. Okay? Kaya dun siya. Okay. We go to the remeasurement. Alam natin na ang actuarial gains and loss, okay? Kapag actuarial gain siya, edi dito. Kapag loss siya, dagdag sa gastos. Okay? Actual return on plan asset, okay? Pwede kasi siyang positive, pwede siyang negative. Okay? So this is either positive or negative. Okay? Kapag yung return on plan asset results in a positive effect, ibig sabihin, mas malaki yung kinita as compared doon sa ini-expect, bawas yun. Okay? Kapag naman, negative result, dagdag sa cost. Okay? Yun siya. Kaso baliktad nung ano, no? So, pag positive siya, ganun tama. Kasi kapag positive siya dito, bawas siya doon sa OCI. Kapag naman negative effect, ibig sabihin, nalugi ka as compared dun sa expected. So, dito siya papasok. Okay. So, ano naman ang mangyayari? Nandito na siya sa OCI, pero i-extend mo pa siya. Yung actuarial gain in DBO, pag sinabing gain, ibig sabihin, mababawasan yung utang. Okay. Kapag sinabing loss, dagdag yung utang. Okay. Kapag yung return on plan asset naman ay positive, okay, dagdag siya dito. Kapag negative, bawas siya. Okay, so, inverse relationship. Okay? Kasi iba yung gain, iba yung loss. Okay? Yun yung presentation natin dyan. After mong i-consider lahat, may mapapansin kang may nawawalang component dyan. Yung tinatawag na contributions to the plan. Ang contribution to the plan kasi, yan yung credit mo sa cash. Okay? Which is a component of plan asset. Okay? So, ang mangyari ngayon dyan, after mo i-consider, pupunta ka na doon sa dulo, kunin mo na yung total. Kunin mo yung total nito, total nito, total nito, total nito. Okay? Tapos, di ba, pagbabanggain mo yung dalawang to, para malaman mo kung accrued, okay, or kung prepaid. Para malaman mo kung kulang ba yung pondo or sobra yung pondo. Okay? So, lagyan natin ng asterisk to. Ay, sorry. Lagyan natin ng, sige, asterisk ito at saka ito na lang. Yan. Tapos, lagyan natin ng note dito. Okay? So, note natin, if the difference is deficit, no? Okay. If the difference results to a deficit, recognize a liability or a net liability in the statement of financial position. Okay? Tapos, if the difference results to a surplus, recognize an asset after considering asset ceiling. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, parang ganito yan. So, lagyan na rin ng asterisk dito, asset ceiling. Yung asset ceiling, hindi naman lagi. Okay, so lagyan natin dalawang asterisk na lang. Yung asset ceiling dyan, it is part of here. Okay? So, lagyan natin ng meaning yung dalawang yon. Okay? Recognized only if the surplus exceeds the asset ceiling. Asset ceiling being the present value of the expected reimbursements or yung mga ibabalik dun sa ating company. Kasi sumobra yung contribution. Okay. So therefore, yung lalabas na total ng benefit expense in OCI mo is going to be generally determined by 2 items only. Tapos, saka lang madadagdagan ng asset ceiling kapag nagkaroon ng excess surplus beyond doon sa asset ceiling. Okay, so yun yung answer natin dyan. Okay, sige. So, from there, pwede na tayong mag-answer. Okay, answer na tayo. Ay, by the way, pitinin ulit natin konti. Kung gusto mong mag-solve ng individual item, okay, ito na rin yung lalabas doon sa individual items mo. Okay, so pag tinatanong ka ng, kunyari yung problem, ang tinatanong lang sa'yo, benefit expense in the P&L lang. Ito na yung components niya. Plus minus na lang. Pag sinabi sa'yo yung benefit expense in the OCI, ito na yung component. Pag pinapakompute sa'yo yung total, fair value of plan asset, ito na yung mga component niya. Okay, basta ingat-ingat lang kung ano yung ina-add, ano yung mina-minus. Okay? So, yan siya. Ganun din sa benefit obligation. So, pwedeng ang approach mo is yung buong table para makompute mo lahat ng item. Pwede rin pa isa-isa, okay, per column, okay, whichever is relevant doon sa problem. Pero of course, in our first problem, lahat yata ma-token natin. Lahat ay magagalaw natin. Okay. Sige. So, first problem natin, Memorandum Records, 2015 pa yan, no? So, defined benefit obligation is 3 million. Fair value plan asset is 2,600,000. Okay? The following information for 2015 is also provided. So, given na yung mga items natin. Pinapakompute sa atin, prepaid accrued benefit obligation nung beginning, retirement benefit expense P&L, OCI, magkano yung plan asset, December 31, tapos kung magkano yung net defined liability or asset. Okay, so pwede nating kopyahin to. Ito na lang ang i-present natin. Lagay natin sa ilalim. Okay. Yan. Okay, tapos tanggalin muna natin yung mga laman. Para tayo problema. Okay, yan siya. So, isa-isahin natin yung mga items. Ito yung mga beginning balance, di ba? Yung obligation, 3 million. Yung plan asset, 2,600,000. Oh, mas mahirap kapag ganyan pala. Wait lang. Gawa na lang tayong Excel. Okay, so, kumpletuhin na lang natin yung table using the information given. Okay, so, the problem states that the defined benefit obligation nung beginning is 3 million. So, plot natin. Plot natin dito. Beginning balance is 3 million. Okay. Pagkatapos, yung fair value plan asset 26. So, dito naman siya. Yan. Next, binigay sa atin yung components ng service cost. We have the service cost 2015, which is the current service cost. Tapos pa service cost na 200,000. So, plot natin dito, current service cost is 1 million. Tapos pa service cost 200,000. I-bold natin para kita lahat. Okay? Next. Bago natin ituloy, syempre kailangan i-carry forward na natin yan doon sa respective column niya. Kasi ang current service cost na 1 million, saka yung 200,000 na pa service cost, kasama yan sa magiging change ng defined benefit obligation. Next. Ang discount rate daw ay 10%. Bakit ka pinigyan ng discount rate na 10%? Para malaman mo kung magkano yung ating net interest. Okay? So basically, yun yung paglalagyan natin dito ng interest. Okay? Yung interest expense natin, okay, is based on 10% of the benefit obligation. Okay? Ito yung basic lang muna kasi ang assumption, nagdadagdag tayo ng cost at the end of the year. So ibig sabihin, ang basis ng interest natin will be yung beginning balance. Pero there are other problems na kung may contribution in between, kung may nadagdag na cost in between, then kasama siya sa computation ng ating expense. So, here the assumption is, sa beginning lang tayo magbe-base ng 10%. Okay? So, 300,000 ang interest expense, tapos yung interest income natin will be yung beginning ng fair value plan asset times 10% din. Okay? Minus siya kasi bawas sa cost. Okay? Pero, kung i-forward natin siya, yung 300,000 dagdag sa utang, yung interest income na 260 dagdag sa pondo ng plan asset. Okay? So, kaya ang net interest, kapag tinanong ka, magkano ang net interest? 40,000. Okay, ang net interest natin. Next, actual return on plan asset na 300,000. Okay? So, ito yung sinasabi nating return on plan asset na positive or negative effect. Okay? Kasi tignan mo to. Ang actual return on plan asset, 300. Okay? Ang ine-expect lang natin nakitain is 260. So, therefore, meron tayong return on plan asset na positive or negative. The answer is positive. May sobrang 40,000. Kapag sobra siya dito, syempre, negative siya. Kasi cost ang pinag-uusapan dito eh. So, negative siya. Pero, sa point of view ni plan asset, dagdag siya. Okay? So, in other words, kumita ka ng 40,000 in excess of the expected 260. Okay? So, sa point of view ni plan asset, may nadagdag pang 40,000 na pondo. Sa point of view ni benefit expense OCI, may negative na amount. Kumbaga, pangbawas sa expense. Okay? So, yun siya. Next, benefits paid is 350. Okay? Pero, yung benefits paid na to, may nakalagay dito na note sa baba. The present value of the defined benefit obligation settled during the year is 375. So, 375 daw yung utang, 350 lang yung binayad. So, paano magagawin ngayon yon? Dito ka pupunta sa column na to. Ang utang, minus 375. Yung binayad, minus 350. So, ano to? Kumita ka ba or nalugi ka? Ang sagot ay kumita or may gain ka na 25,000. Okay, so you have a gain of 25,000 because you paid or you settled the 375,000 obligation by simply paying 350,000. So, meron kang gain on settlement na 25,000. Okay, so yun yan. Next, benefits paid. Tapos na contributions to the plan na 900. So, dito tayo. Contributions to the plan na 900. Diba dito yan ilalagay. Okay, so nadagdagan yung pondo natin because of the contribution. Finally, actuarial loss on remeasurement of defined benefit obligation na 100,000. So, may loss tayo dito, dagdag sa cost. Kung actuarial loss yan, ibig sabihin na dagdagan yung utang. Kung actuarial gain, nabawasan yung utang. So, may 100,000 din dito na dagdag sa utang. Okay? So, from there, pwede na tayong mag-compute ng total. Okay? Saka natin i-consider yung asset ceiling sa OCI kung meron mang asset ceiling na binigay. Pero based on the information, parang wala naman. So, kuya natin yung total. Yan na lang lahat-lahat. Okay, para pag kinuha natin yung kompleto. Alright. So, based on this problem, ano ang total natin? Sorry, kulang yung total nito. Hindi na isama yung beginning. Dapat start tayo ng D2. Pero hindi nasabay. Okay. Yan. So, from there, bigay natin yung sagot doon sa mga tinatanong. First question, determine the net prepaid or accrued benefit cost that was shown on January 1, 2015 Statement of Financial Position. Ang sagot dyan, kung 3 million yon tapos 600 ay 26 yon, may 400 tayo na net accrued. So, 400,000 accrued. Ang sagot natin sa first question. Okay? Kasi mas maraming utang kaysa pondo. So, may accrued or may utang na 400 na hindi pa napopondohan. Next question. Retirement benefit expense recognized in P&L for 2015. The answer is ito. 1215. Okay? Next question. Magkano yung compute for the retirement benefit expense that is taken to OCI? Okay? So, ang sagot naman pag OCI ay ito, 60,000. Dahil siya ay debit, ibig sabihin, loss siya or dagdag na gastos. 60,000 loss or expense. Okay? So kapag tumaas, edi income, di ba? Yung labas niya. Next question, determine the benefit obligation and plan asset balance on December 31, 2015. So ang sagot, yung projected benefit obligation, ito na yon, or the defined benefit obligation, 4225. Okay? So yun yung PBO/DBO. Kasi depende. Iba-iba kasi ang term na ginagamit. Tapos yung fair value plan asset natin, okay, yung ito, 3450. Okay. So therefore, kung ito yung asset, 3450 lang, tapos yung DBO is 4225, tinatanong ka dun sa number 5, determine the net defined liability or asset that is shown in 2015. Anong sagot natin dyan? Ang sagot natin, kunin natin yung difference muna. So that's going to be ito minus yun, di ba? So meron pang 775 na hindi napopondohan. So that's going to be 775,000 accrued. So yan ang sagot natin dun sa problem. So therefore, walang asset ceiling effect kasi accrued pa to. Okay? So kopyahin natin to. Tapos i-post natin dito para sa solution. So yan yung answer natin kapag kinompleto yung table. So mas maganda kasi kapag naka-tabular presentation siya kasi mas nakukuha tsaka nakikita mo yung relationship between the items. Okay? Which is better. Okay, so yan yung sagot natin sa question 1. Okay. Punta tayo sa next question. Question number 2. The following information pertains to the company's defined benefit plan for 2015. Tanong ay, what amount should be reported as pension expense in 2015? So pag sinabing pension expense, tapos hindi kinlassify kung yan ay P&L or OCI, compute mo lahat ng expense. Okay? So, the answer here will be as follows. So, sinabi, merong current service cost na 1.6. Tapos may actual gain on plan asset na 350. Okay, di ba parang ang labas ganito? Ang actual gain ay 350. Ang interest income on plan asset is 400. So, ibig sabihin may lugi ka na, may lugi ka na 50. Parang ganun. Tapos, meron kang pa-service cost na 50. Tapos, may annual interest on pension liability na 500. So, start muna tayo sa pension expense na nasa P&L muna. So, 1.6, may pa-service cost na 50. So, plus 50 tayo dito. Wala namang binigay na gain or loss on settlement. Kunin natin yung net interest. Ang net interest natin, plus 500 minus 400. So, 1,750. So, ang intention ng problem na to is for us to compute only the expense na nasa P&L. Okay? Pag sinabi natin, or pag sinama natin yung, so ilagay natin yung note dito, benefit expense in P&L is equal to 1,750. Okay? Pag total, lagay na lang natin yung benefit expense in OCI. Kung ang actual gain ay 350, 400 din expect natin, may 50 dito. Okay? So, ang lalabas na total benefit expense, lalabas sana dyan ay 1/8. Okay, so hindi naman lumabas sa choices. So, ibig sabihin, ang intention ng problem in this case is to get only the benefit expense in P&L lang. So, letter D ang sagot. Yun. So, generally, kapag lumabas yung lumabas yung 1/8, malamang yun na talaga yung gusto niyang ilabas na sagot. Kasi, hindi naman niya kinwalify kung benefit expense ba na P&L or OCI. Okay? So, yun yung gagawin natin dyan. Okay? We go to the next item. Okay, so punta tayo kay Brad Company. Okay, so Brad Company provided the following information on December 31. Ang tinatanong, what is the net pension expense? Okay, net pension expense, so most probably, ang hinahanap na dito is the total ulit. So, kunin ulit natin yung benefit expense. Expense in P&L. Okay, so magkano yung benefit expense sa P&L? Labas na natin yung calcu para diretso tayo mag-solve. Current service cost, 520. Past service cost, 360. Meron bang gain or loss? Ayun, loss on plan settlement na 240. Dagdag yun. Okay. Interest expense is 590. So, plus 590 tayo. Tapos, interest income on plan asset, 150. So, minus 150. So, that's 1,560. Yun na naman. So, yan lang yung P&L. Tapos, yung ating benefit expense in OCI, para comprehensive yung sagot natin, compute natin. Ano pa yung mga item? Current loss, pass. Wala pala. Wala namang binigay na OCI. So, not given. Okay, walang binigay eh. Puro ano lang, oh. Puro component lang to ng P&L. Okay, so yung malamang, yun na yung sagot. Okay, letter D. Contribution to the pension fund is not considered as an expense. Okay? So, yan siya. Okay, sorry. By the way, before ko makalimutan, balikan lang natin sandali itong problem na to. Kasi gusto kasi nating ipakita na magbabalance yung ating journal entry after mong gawin. Ang entry mo lang kasi ganito. Benefit expense, P&L, 1215. Tapos benefit expense, OCI, 60. Credit tayo ng cash, 900. Ano tong balancing figure? Itong balancing figure is the prepaid or accrued benefit obligation, also known as your PABO. Okay? Pag kinompute natin yan, di ba, 1215 plus 60 minus 900,000. Di ba may 375 na item dito? Okay. So, ang tanong, magbabalance ba yung record natin? Ang sagot ay yes. Kasi, ang beginning balance natin is accrued na, di ba? So, credit na yung balance nung beginning natin na 400,000. Okay? So, lagay natin na beginning balance of PABO or prepaid accrued benefit obligation is equal to 400,000 na accrued. Di ba? Therefore, this is credit balance. Okay? Tapos ito yung entry to recognize benefit transaction. Okay, so yan yung entry na. So kung ang beginning balance ay 400 na accrued, tapos yung adjustment ay 375 na credit din. So ang balance na natin, ending balance, is 775 accrued pa rin. Credit balance pa rin. Yun. So, ibig sabihin, tama yung ginawa natin. Kasi ito lang naman, sa dami-dami ng kinompute mo, okay, ito lang talaga ang journal entry mo. Okay? So, ang goal mo basta mag-balance yung ating prepaid and accrued prepaid or accrued benefit obligation. Okay? So, yun yung item natin dyan. Okay, going back, 4 tayo, number 4. Okay. On January 1, the company established a non-contributory defined benefit plan covering all employees and contributed 1 million to the plan. So that's January 1. On December 31, the entity determined that the current service cost and net interest on the plan amount to 620. The discount rate was 10%. What amount should be reported on December 31 as prepaid pension cost? Okay. So, basically, ang gagawin mo lang dyan is ganito. Kunin mo yung fair value of plan asset. Okay? So, the fair value of plan asset is equal to 1 million plus yung interest niya. Kung 10% kasi nag-contribute siya noong January, so malamang mag-earn siya ng 10% interest, di ba? So, that's 100,000 interest. Okay, so ang total natin ngayon dyan is 1,100,000. Okay? Pagkatapos, kunin natin yung laman ng defined benefit obligation. Okay, ang sinabi ng problem kasi, the entity determined that the current service cost and net interest expense. Pag sinabing net interest, di ba, naibawas na dyan yung interest income. Therefore, the defined benefit obligation is equal to the 620, add back mo yung 100,000 na interest income. Diba? Okay, parang lalabas, ganun pa rin. Actually, kahit pagbawasin mo tong dalawa lang na diretsyo, same yung lalabas na sagot. Pero kasi hindi yun yung logical reason kung bakit yun yung sagot. Okay? So, ang lalabas dito is 720. Okay? Tapos, ang lalabas yung prepaid pension cost, also known as your PABO, is equal to 320. Okay. So, logic ulit niyan. Bakit natin ina-add back yung 100,000? Kasi pag kinuha mong service cost, di ba ang laman ng service cost is past service cost, current service cost. Tapos, para makuha mo yung mga pumapasok lang sa defined benefit obligation, dapat ang hinahanap mo lang current service cost, past service cost. Kung walang gain or loss on settlement, interest expense lang dapat. So, 3 lang dapat yung pumapasok na component. Okay? Kaso, net interest daw siya. So, ibig sabihin na ibawas tong interest income. Okay? So, para matanggal yung effect ng interest income, i-add back mo yung 100,000. Kaya dun sa problem natin, in-add back natin yung 100,000 na interest income. Okay, so 380 ito. Okay, yun yung amount natin sa number 4. Yan. Okay, number 5, on January 1, 2015, Cheryl Company adopted a defined benefit plan. The plan's current service cost was 750. It was fully funded at the end of 2015. So, ibig sabihin, zero ang prepaid or accrued benefit obligation natin. Okay? Past service cost was funded by a contribution of 300,000 in 2015. The past service cost was 120 for 2015. What is the prepaid pension cost in December 31, 2015? Okay. So, basic lang yan. So, ganito siya. Yung current service cost, that's 750. Past service cost is, ano yan? 120. Okay. So total is 870. Funding natin is equal to funding for current service cost. Yung mismong kompleto, di ba? Sabi fully funded. Fully funded at the end of 2015. Funding for past service cost was 300,000. Okay? So total, this is 1,050,000. Okay? Yan siya. So the prepaid pension cost is equal to 1,050,000 minus 870. Okay, which is 180,000. Okay, calculate mo lang para sure. 1,050,000 yung pondo, 870 yung utang. So 180 ang prepaid. Okay? So yun yan. Ilagyan lang natin ng blue. Right, next, number 6. So, the company adopted a defined benefit plan on January 1, 2015. The pension funding payment is made to the trustee on December 31 each year. So, ang payment daw, yung funding natin is at the end of the year. The following information is available. We have service cost, funding payment or contributions to the plan, interest, at saka interest income. Okay. What is the prepaid pension cost on December 31, 2016? Okay. So basically, ang gagawin natin, i-compute natin lahat nung compute natin lahat ng mga laman ng DBO. So yung defined benefit obligation is basically equal to 1,500,000 plus 1,650,000 plus yung interest ng benefit obligation na 150. Okay. So, yun na yung laman yan. Okay. So, calculate lang natin para sure. 1,500 plus 1,650 plus 150. So, 3,300. Okay. Tas yung fair value plan asset is equal to yung funding na 1,700 plus 1,850 plus 170. So that's 1,700 plus 1,850 plus 170. So that's 3,720. 3,720. Okay. So prepaid pa rin to. Prepaid pension cost is equal to 3,720 minus 3,300 or 420. So, yun yung sagot natin sa problem na yan. Okay, so medyo madadali lang yung mga ibang items. Next, yung company daw may balance relating to the benefit plan. Ang tinatanong sa atin, what is the prepaid benefit cost to be reported on December 31 statement of financial position? So sinabi, the fair value plan asset is 37, projected benefit obligation is 33. Okay? So wait, ilagay lang natin dito. So the PABO, therefore, is equal to 37 minus 33 is 4 million, di ba? Okay? Pero, asset ceiling is 2.5. Okay? Therefore, only 2.5 will be recognized. Yung excess na 1.5 is presented in other comprehensive income. Okay? So, yan yung sagot natin dito sa number 7. Okay, kaya ang sagot natin ay 2.5 lang. Kasi hindi natin pwedeng i-recognize sa na asset yung total. Ang pwede lang natin i-recognize is yung portion that is um, within the limit, which is yung asset ceiling. Okay? Next, number 8. On January 1, the memorandum records of the company showed the balances. Tinatanong is what is the prepaid or accrued benefit cost. So, binigyan ka ng fair value unamortized past service cost. So again, ang unamortized past service cost, ipapasok mo na lang yan sa ano ha. Kasi this is prior to adoption of past 19R daw. So kaya may unamortized dito kasi hindi ka pa nag-a-adjust. So ito, pasok mo na sa retained earnings yan. Okay? So ibig sabihin, ang relevant na lang sa'yo, itong fair value at saka yung projected benefit obligation. So ang gagawin natin, hanapin natin yung fair value plan asset ending. Okay? So, diretso natin sa calculator para makuha natin. So, ang beginning natin is 8 million. Tapos, contribution to the plan. Sorry, ano bang mga relevant dyan? Ito lang, interest income na 800. Tapos, contribution to the plan na 2 million. Tapos, nagbayad ng benefit na 1 million. So, bawas yan. So, 9.8 ito. 9,800,000. Yung DBO ending, compute naman natin. So, magsa-start tayo sa 9 million. Tapos, may current service cost na 1.5. May interest expense na 900. Tapos, may benefits paid na 1 million. So, 10.4 naman to. Okay. So, ang pabo natin, difference nito, mas madaming utang ha, kaysa doon sa fair value plan natin. So, bawas natin yung 9.8 dito. 600. Accrued. Ayan. So, yan yung sagot natin dito sa problem na to. So, mabilis lang ang computation basta alam mo yung components. Okay? Last item tayo. The following information pertains to the company's defined benefit pension plan for the current year. Tinatanong ay what is the accrued pension cost at year end. Okay, so gawin na lang natin dito. Ganun ulit. Ito si fair value plan asset. Ito si DBO. Ending lang ulit. Ending. Yan, para mas madaling makompute. Okay, yun nga lang, ang trick ng problem na to, ang binigay sa'yo ay prepaid pension cost noong January. So kung prepaid siya, ibig sabihin mas maraming asset kaysa doon sa utang, di ba? So pag magko-compute tayo, since that is prepaid, assume natin na yung 20,000, yun na yung asset. Okay? So assume natin 0 yung utang at the beginning of the year. So dagdag natin yung interest income na 400,000. Dagdag natin yung contribution na 400,000. Okay, yun lang naman yun. So, 820 na to. Okay. Yung DBO ending natin, paano may compute? Diba, assume natin 0 nga yung start niya. So, kasi prepaid nga yung labas. Okay. So, ano yung madadagdag? Current service cost na 190. Tapos, past service cost na 500. Okay, so that's going to be, yun na lang po yun. Current service cost, 190. Interest na, may 380 pa pala. Okay, so, 1,070,000 to. Okay. So, ang labas nito, yung pabo natin, natin yung difference, 1,070,000 minus yung 820 na funding, 250 na accrued. Yun. So, letter A ang sagot. So, that is for our discussion ng part 1. Basics lang ng employee benefits under yung retirement benefit ng defined benefit plan. Yung part 2 natin, discussion ng mga other topics pertaining to employee benefits.